Today's episode is built from a conversation that Oksana Susenko and I had with m0use, also known as Jubilocity on Flickr and DeviantArt, ahead of her upcoming exhibition at the Future Rain Gallery in Neo-Extropia. What you'll hear isn't a direct interview transcript, but a distilled reflection on that exchange, on how she works, how she thinks about her own art, and the quiet tension between what she creates and how she sees herself. This is a story about virtual photography, cyberpunk aesthetics, and the surprisingly human questions that surface when art is made inside a digital world. What if an artist's studio wasn't a room, but an entire universe? I mean, a whole digital world. Today, we're diving into the story of a creator who builds these incredible worlds of story and emotion, not with clay or paint, but with pixels and avatars, all from inside a virtual reality. And right off the bat, we run into this really interesting puzzle. The creator at the very heart of this story, who goes by m0use, has a gallery show. She has a following, a totally distinct style, and yet she's not even sure she wants to call herself an artist. So, where is all of this happening? We're talking about the sprawling digital landscape of Second Life. For our subject, m0use, this isn't just a game. It's her studio, it's her canvas, and really it's her home. And inside of it, she's getting known for being a seriously compelling visual storyteller. So, what is she actually doing? Well, her art form is virtual photography. And let's be clear, this is way more than just hitting the screenshot button. No, this is a complex craft. It involves composition, lighting, direction, all happening inside a simulated world to capture these really striking images of avatars and digital spaces. And this really gets to the core of her story, this fascinating disconnect between the powerful art she's making and how she actually sees herself. It's an identity that's kind of in motion, and it's definitely worth a closer look. Okay, so check this out. This is where that conflict just comes crystal clear. On one side, you've got m0use's self-doubt. She actually calls her own work silly. But then on the other side, her peers see something completely different. They're using words like magnificent and wow factor. I mean, another artist, Oksana Susenko, even said she felt like she was finger painting next to m0use's work. The art community sees a major talent, even if she can't quite see it for herself yet. But then things start to change. m0use found that as a real audience started connecting with what she was making, that self doubt started to chip away. That outside validation was like a powerful mirror, kind of forcing her to see the artist that everybody else already saw. All right, so how does she pull this off? How are these incredible cyberpunk scenes even made? Let's peel back the curtain a little and take a look at her process. It's basically a three-step process. First, you've got the spark. Could be anything, an item, a certain look, maybe a story idea. Next up is framing the scene, where she uses the special in-world viewer to hunt for those really dramatic cinematic angles. And then finally, she refines the mood, skillfully playing with light to completely transform the atmosphere of a scene from something ordinary into something else, something really evocative. Her toolkit is pretty specialized. She's using Second Life viewers like Black Dragon, which is kind of like her virtual camera rig, giving her total control over stuff like depth of field and lens angles, and the open source editor GIMP. But here's the really impressive part. Her whole philosophy is to get the perfect shot through the lens right inside the virtual world. She's all about in-world composition and lighting, not a ton of editing after the fact. Okay, so we've got the how, but what's she actually creating? What's her art about? Well, her work explores this really fascinating place where two worlds collide: the dark futuristic world of dystopia and the super personal world of desire. And you can almost see the recipe for her art in her influences. The whole cyberpunk vibe that comes from classics like the neon drenched streets of Blade Runner, and anime like Ghost in the Shell, and the eroticism that's drawn from graphic novels like Sunstone, but also, and this is important, from her own personal history with role play inside Second Life. And for her, this wasn't some big conscious decision to suddenly get edgy. It was actually a really natural progression. She explains that her avatar's own backstory is that of a joy toy, a synthetic pleasure model. So the sensuality in her art is just baked into her character's digital identity right from the beginning. So you take all of this, the self doubt, the technical skill, the unique themes, and where does it lead? Well, it's all building up to something huge, her very first solo exhibition. And she is not pulling any punches with the title. Get this: Digital Love, Sex, Sleaze, and Seduction in Cyberpunk. It's provocative, it's direct, and yeah, it's a perfect summary of what her art is all about. And hey, if you're in world and you want to see it for yourself, the exhibit opens at the Future Rain Gallery in NeoX this on Saturday, January 17th at 3 p.m. Second Lifetime. It's a real event just happening in a virtual space. So what's the vibe going for? Well, m0use herself says she wants to celebrate the dark and sleazy underbelly of cyberpunk. She's not just showing it to you, she's reveling in it. She wants to dive right in. But it's not just about the aesthetic. Underneath all that sex and sleaze, there's a much bigger question being asked. What does it actually mean to be human when the lines between what's real and what's artificial are getting so blurred? And m0use really just hits the nail on the head here. Her work asks if an artificial person, a joy toy, who has made who was made for just one reason, can find her own agency, her own purpose. That's a pretty profound question about identity and freedom, all told through this amazing cyberpunk lens. Which really just leaves us all with one final, kind of mind bending question to think about. In a digital world where your identity can be anything you want, where does the artist end and where does the avatar begin? If this conversation stirred something, if it made you curious about where identity, desire, and creation blur into one, then don't stop here. m0use's first solo exhibition opens Saturday, January 17th at 3 p.m. at the Future Rain Gallery in NeoX. Step inside the world she's been building all along and experience a work as it was meant to be seen: immersive, provocative, and unapologetically intimate. You can also find more of her visual storytelling beyond the gallery. Look for her work on Flickr and DeviantArt under the name Jubilocity, where these digital moments continue to unfold frame by frame. Until next time, stay curious and don't underestimate the worlds people build when they think no one is watching.